before we get into today's topic, I just want to bring up or ask the question, or just state this: like, how fucking awesome was the Warriors game on PS2 back in the day? My God, like they did such a bang up job. Like all those non-GTA Rockstar games back in the day, they kicked ass. Like Bully, Warriors, Manhunt 2, like trippy games and just like so good and playable.
I was always attracted to the horror genre. And when I was old enough to go to movies by myself, they were re-releasing the Universal, the famous monsters. The original Frankenstein, the original Dracula. As a kid, I got to see those films big screen, and they're beautiful, they're just gorgeous.
Real quick, I just want to say thanks for watching this video. Thanks for everyone that's been watching the videos. And I made a Facebook page. It's Bluntzilla Video. Link will be in the description. Check that shit out. Let's get into some George Romero films on tape here. So, George Romero, of course, is one of the best horror filmmakers. He's very well regarded. A lot of people say he's their favorite filmmaker, and he's one of my favorite filmmakers. It's really hard to make a list of favorite movie makers, but George Romero is definitely up there for me and for a lot of people. Night of the Living Dead is a film that he made on like a budget of under $100,000 or just over $100,000, and it's amazing that this movie has like stood the test of time, because here's a flick that came out in like '68 and people are still talking about it now, and it's just one of those movies that should have been swept under the rug, much like a lot of the films of the '60s, because there's a lot of fucking bad movies from the '60s, a lot of bad movies from the '50s and stuff like that. And this one, like along with The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, this is one of those movies that is just like wham bam. And as well, like there's tons of Vincent Price good one, like there's tons of good Vincent Price films out there, but I'm just like trying to make like an example, you know what I mean? So you got Last Man on Earth, you got Night of the Living Dead. Like those are two titles that like just scream come fucking watch me as a double feature at a drive-in, in some like dingy drive-in with your fucking girl on your side, and you got like a blunt going, and just having a great time, because these are screamer films, you know what I mean? Like these, and what I mean by that is these are the type of films that back in the day, when people were in the theater watching these fuckers, they were screaming. It's not like now, not like today. When you go to a theater, it's a scary film, it's more laughter, you know what I mean? So it's a shame, these guys made these movies to be scary, and I'm guilty for it myself. I'm sure every horror fan is guilty of this, is laughing at scary parts, and maybe it's just a way to deal with what's happening on screen. But I don't know, man. I think that the screamer needs to come back. We need some more films that are making people scream. Night of the Living Dead, man, just it's a staple. It's a staple, and I've got many editions of this on tape, but you only need one, man. You only need one. George Romero followed up Night of the Living Dead with Dawn of the Dead, which is, my God, one of the most talked about films, deservedly so, in the horror world, man. This is a movie that was made for, I can only put it in my own words, but I feel like this is a kind of movie that was like made for me, and there's certain movies that you feel personally connected with, and this is one of them for me. I feel personally connected to Jaws, you know what I mean? I feel personally connected to fucking, say, Independence Day, even though a lot of people think that's a shithole movie, but I like it. And if you watch Opie and Anthony's show, watch the clip they did with Patrice O'Neal talking shit about Independence Day, you will laugh like a motherfucker, I'm telling you. But Dawn of the Dead, it's like 3 movies in one, or like multiple movies in one. It's a cop movie, it's a fucking crime film, it's a biker film, it's a zombie film. Like, it's all these films rolled up in one with lovable characters and competent actors, man. A lot of my earliest memories involve Dawn of the Dead. I watch it with my dad a million times. I watched it by myself a million times. It's one of those movies that is just there when you need it, you know what I mean? So moving along, we got Day of the Dead. Now, unfortunately, I do not have a store-bought copy of this on tape, but that's fine, because I have a tape from my dad's motherfucking custom-made bootleg collection, which I have on the shelf over there, proud display. This is the shit that I'll be grabbing if there's ever a fire down here, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's got that something in their collection, or even if it's not tapes, it's like stamps or cards or vinyl. I know a lot of dudes that collect vinyl and stuff like that, and you know, it's just the shit that it's like, you know, when there's a fire and like the old maiden, she'll grab like the photo album or stuff like that. Well, I'm running past the fucking photo album and grabbing all my dad's tapes. So Day of the Dead essentially takes place in an underground bunker, and I'm not sure what the budget on this film was, but they must have spent a lot of money renting out that bunker, because it looks like there's a lot of storage being used down there. Like there's parts where you see like boats all wrapped up and cars and shit like that. Like, what's the deal with that mine? Like, I know it was called like the Wampum Mine, and this is actually when you first get a taste of Greg Nicotero, Howard Berger. This is the first film that they all worked on together with Savini running the show. You know, it's important to mention that Tom Savini is the maestro of special effects, and of course did all the special effects in Dawn of the Dead as well. But with Day of the Dead, like, these zombies are, I mentioned in my Lucio Fulci zombie the other day that the zombies look dusty, like with that cinnamon trick. Like, same kind of deal with this one, man. Like, they look dirty. Like with Dawn of the Dead, they just kind of look like they look freshly dead. Some of them are more grisly and stuff, but you can tell they were just kind of like making them up and getting them out, like sort of like a production line. You know, with this, there's a lot more memorable zombies. Not saying there's not memorable zombies in Dawn of the Dead, but when you think of Day of the Dead, like, you got Bub, who's the fucked up thing about that Bub guy is he's played by the dude from the Seinfeld episode where the Junior Mint falls into his stomach. Like, that's the guy. That's Bub. Blows my mind. Day of the Dead is definitely ingrained in my DNA as well. Like, especially the dudes, like the pilot and the communications guy. They have like this little hut off to the side where they get like pissed up and stuff. You know, they call it the Ritz, which is cool because like my dad always says that whenever, like, sometimes he'll just say that randomly, like, oh, it's the Ritz, you know. And I've even kind of implemented that into my speech. Like, I love this film. Captain Rhodes, Joe Pilato, like, Jesus Christ, this guy is a fucking, you don't see a lot of him, but he did have a bit part in Dawn of the Dead as one of the cops, but you could miss it if you're not watching the special edition. It's so fast, or the extended cut rather, which there's a great, if you don't have access to this film, there is a copy of it on YouTube. It's the extended cut where you get everything. Great score as well, because I know there's multiple scores with these films. Yeah, Day of the Dead, classic, man. I got to get a store-bought tape of that. But like I said, I'm fine with what I got. Moving on, we got Martin, which I feel like I just talked about this recently because I just watched it recently. I probably brought it up in a video, but this is a film that is an unconventional vampire film where you got a vampire that's, you know, has a particular method of extracting the blood or getting the blood from these women, involving razors and drugs and stuff like that. And it's very crazy. It's very like gross to watch if you're not good with like watching wrists being cut or necks being cut and shit like that. I mean, I'm fine with that because I'm so fucked up from watching all this shit all my life, but it's definitely good fun. I used to not like it when I was a kid. I gotta admit that I did not like it, but now when I watch it, I really do think it's one of the great vampire films. The next film we're going to talk about is another fantastic film that he directed. He actually made this in between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, and that film is The Crazies. Now, before I talk about The Crazies by George Romero, let me just quickly say that The Crazies and Dawn of the Dead were both remade, and both those remakes are not bad at all. And people can say they're bullshit, they can say whatever they want, but I'm saying this, like, I believe those are decent films. I like Timothy Olyphant, and I like Ving Rhames, and I like everybody that was in those films, and I thought it was a good job, and they were well done remakes. If you compare that to some of the remakes out there, don't even fucking go there with me. Give me a break. Like, you know what I'm talking about. You know, if you know, you know. If you don't, whatever. But The Crazies is just a film about this virus that's happening, driving people fucking crazy, and there's lots of cool effects in this. Like, there's like very weird like biohazard suits. Whenever I think of this film, I think of that poster with like the guys running with the biosuits. Very trippy. And I believe that the dude from Dawn of the Dead, this is cryptic, but if you remember Dawn of the Dead, there's a scene where there's a guy talking on the TV and he has an eye patch. He's in The Crazies. And I remember when I first seen that, I was watching it by myself and I was like, fuck, like I wanted to tell somebody. You ever have that with a film? Moving on, like I said in the beginning of this film, I don't have my store-bought copies of Creepshow or Creepshow 2, but I do have the DVDs. This is one of the first DVDs I bought by myself, and I bought it and I gave it to my dad, but then once he realized that I was turning into a fucking cinephile, that he was like, hey man, you can just take all my flicks, basically. Just I'm gonna keep a few, and Bob's your uncle. So Creepshow is a passion project put together by George Romero and Stephen King. Special effects by Tom Savini, of course. Terrific acting all around. You got 5 stories. And then with Creepshow 2, you got 3 stories, I believe. And the thing with Creepshow 2, a lot of people talk shit. They talk shit about it, but Creepshow 2 has the old wooden head, fucking the story involving the general store that gets fucked over by a couple of roughhousers, and basically the cigar store Indian out front takes revenge, and it's great. I love it. I just thought that was awesome. Like, it was so fun. And even in the Creepshow television show that they put out on Shudder, they referenced that Chief Woodenhead, so that was great. Yeah, and with Creepshow 1, before I forget to mention, my favorite story would probably be with Fluffy. You know, I think it's a safe bet to say. And I used to hate the one with the cockroaches, but that one's starting to grow on me a bit. And yeah, that's not that I hated it, but you know, and also the one with Stephen King, the Jordy Verrill story, where he just gets turned into basically a piece of broccoli, more or less, and then he blows his brains out. I love seeing Stephen King be like this greasy guy in movies. Like, usually when you see him in a movie, he's kind of a greasy guy. Like, I think Stephen King could have played Stephen Wright's part in Half-Baked, if you know what I'm talking about. And there's a special little trick you can do with your Xbox 360. You can put stuff onto tape, okay? And you can also rip stuff off YouTube, put on a disc, of course. But I've done this myself and got a lot of George Romero interviews, documentaries and stuff, clips, stuff you can't get on a DVD. For whatever reason, you know what I mean? And DVDs and Blu-rays, they are getting really good at like posting a lot of excellent content along with the film in order of special features and commentaries and stuff, and tracking down commentaries they did for the Laserdisc in like 1989 and or whatever, and then they put it on the DVD, and it's like you get to hear this because some of these dudes have passed on since. Like I said, possibilities are endless. There's so many documentaries and stuff. You can watch these guys that have passed on and enjoy the movies that they've made, and just have a good time enjoying the culture, you know, enjoying the subculture that is horror, that goes for books, comics, movies, video games and stuff. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a big gamer, but when it comes to the Warriors on PS2, I'm fucking hooked. Adios. Ding!